right now, deep inside your cardiovascular highway, a catastrophic event is unfolding in absolute silence. You might think that eating a heavy, greasy meal is the primary reason your body builds fat. But the true mechanical disaster begins differently. It starts with a tsunami. A single, seemingly harmless sugary drink suddenly floods the delicate mucosal lining of your small intestine. Within seconds, millions of razor-sharp, crystalline glucose molecules violently crash into your bloodstream. The serene, amber-tinted plasma is instantly overwhelmed, turning into a turbulent, hyperdense river of microscopic shards. This is not just a temporary spike in energy. This is a systemic shockwave. The sharp edges of these glucose crystals begin to aggressively scrape against the sensitive endothelial walls of your blood vessels, triggering an immediate biological state of emergency across your entire metabolic system. To prevent these glucose shards from tearing your blood vessels apart, your pancreas hits the panic button. It rapidly secretes a massive swarm of glowing, key-like protein structures called insulin. These chemical messengers race through the dense plasma, desperately trying to unlock the doors of your muscle and tissue cells to shove the dangerous sugar inside. But there is a critical problem. The cellular factories are already completely stuffed to the brim. They physically cannot accept another drop of fuel. In a desperate act of self-preservation, the cells aggressively shut down their receptors, locking the insulin keys out in the cold. Now, the bloodstream is choking on a deadly mixture of excess sugar and rejected insulin. With nowhere else to go, this toxic, high-pressure biochemical flood is forcefully redirected toward the ultimate biological filtration plant, your liver. As the toxic sugar flood violently crashes into the hepatic system, the liver has no choice but to initiate its most extreme survival mechanism. It cannot simply burn the sugar, and it cannot let it circulate. It must bury the threat. Deep inside the liver's intricate labyrinth of spongy pink tissue, billions of hepatocytes begin a frantic mechanical process called de novo lipogenesis. They forcefully dismantle the sharp, volatile glucose molecules and chemically compress them. Watch closely as these crystalline shards are synthesized and stitched together into dense, waxy, yellow spheres known as triglycerides. This is the exact, terrifying moment when liquid sugar is physically transformed into solid fat. The liver is desperately trying to save the bloodstream, but in doing so, it acts as an uncontrollable biological hoarder, churning out an endless army of sticky lipid bombs. These newly forged, sticky fat droplets are immediately shipped out of the liver and dumped into the visceral adipose tissue, the storage units buried deep within your abdomen. Here is the most mind-bending reality. Your fat cells do not simply multiply, they inflate. Like terrifying biological balloons, these adipocytes gorge themselves on the incoming lipid droplets, expanding relentlessly. Some swell to an astonishing 1,000 times their original size. This massive mechanical expansion stretches their outer lipid membranes to the absolute breaking point. The environment becomes severely deprived of oxygen. The oversized, suffocating fat cells begin to break down, leaking distress signals into the surrounding tissue. In response, massive, gelatinous macrophages, your immune system's heavy tanks, slither into the suffocating wreckage. They aggressively try to engulf the dying fat cells, accidentally triggering a never-ending, highly destructive cycle of systemic inflammation. As we pull back from the microscopic battlefield, the true horror of this silent disaster is revealed on a macroscopic scale. This hyper-expanded, highly inflamed visceral fat is not just an inactive layer of insulation. It has mutated into a parasitic, toxic entity. It physically wraps around your delicate internal organs, exerting a relentless, crushing mechanical pressure on your heart, liver, and intestines, severely choking off their vital blood supply. The constant inflammatory signals radiating from this waxy wasteland silently pave the way for severe insulin resistance and eventual metabolic collapse. The sudden exhaustion you feel midday, the unexplained sluggishness, it is the physical manifestation of this microscopic war. Remember, the human body is a highly complex, microscopic battlefield. The footage you just watched is a core biological simulation. If your body is sending distress signals, never self-diagnose. Let medical professionals decode them.